Good afternoon, everyone. A special afternoon to all of you tuned in live on TTT and Tobago Channel 5, and of course, all of you tuned in on our social media pages. Welcome to this week's Post-Executive Council media briefing. The Executive Council met today for their weekly meeting at the Division of Finance at the Victor E. Bruce Complex. We are coming to you live from the Scarborough Library and Mitchell Gifts Auditorium, and today updating you on matters arising out of the Executive Council meeting. We have with us our Chief Secretary, Honorable Ansel Dennis. I'll now hand you over to Mr. Dennis.
Thank you very much, Ms. Parks. Good afternoon to members of the media and our viewers and listeners across the country. Let me start by saying that coronavirus, this pandemic, continues to impact the world. 188 countries across the world, almost 5 million cases, and over 300,000 deaths has occurred globally. In addition to that, a number of economies, especially here in the Caribbean, are in fact under tremendous pressure. And here in Tobago, and of course by extension Trinidad, the situation is no different. However, we have been at 116 cases for a number of days, and this seems to suggest that we have in fact managed our situation quite well in terms of the healthcare response, the response in terms of the health. Of course, led by our Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, and the technocrats at the national level. In addition to here in Tobago, our Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development, managing the situation in the Division of Health. Of course, our other operatives in the Division of Health managing quite carefully and quite strategically. We have managed our situation well thus far. And it has not gone unnoticed because a number of institutions and organizations across the world have congratulated Trinidad and Tobago in terms of how we have managed this crisis thus far. And therefore, I want to applaud all our leaders, all our frontline staff members, citizens of this country who have worked tirelessly over the last few months, who have put their own safety and lives on the line, those in hospital, in healthcare institutions, and even those on the streets, such as our police officers, soldiers, and even our citizens in terms of how we have managed thus far, adhering to the guidelines and restrictions, staying home as far as possible. I think the majority of our citizens and residents here in Tobago understood the need for social distancing. We understood the need to stay at home. And I think based on the response of our citizens, we are in a position where we can begin to strategically and carefully reopen businesses across the island and across the country. So as a result of our astute management, we are in a position where we can begin to reopen business, and effective tomorrow, the construction and manufacturing sectors will reopen, and I expect that that will ease some of the pressure, especially here in Tobago, because as we know, a number of our residents were employed in the construction sector and would have been at home for a number of months without an income. But let's not raise any flag of victory as yet. Let's continue to be careful. Let's continue to adhere to all the guidelines. And as all of us should know, the reopening is being done in phases. So as we enter the various phases, guidelines will be issued, and of course there will be some specific Tobago guidelines, and I want to speak to that as it relates to the tourism sector, because in my meeting with stakeholders earlier this week, the question was asked, when can hoteliers and other property owners here in Tobago begin to take bookings from residents in Trinidad? And I want to remind all of us that according to the phase that we are in now, now is not the time for us to begin to attract bookings and attract visitors to establishments, as those establishments should continue to remain closed at this time. But of course, given the fact that construction in the private and public sector is expected to resume from tomorrow, a number of individuals will be going back out to work. A number of Tobago House of Assembly projects will resume as well. And I think that will be some welcomed activity here in the Tobago economy. But again, I want to remind persons, especially those going back out, to exercise caution, because we must remember the reason we are here today, the reason why we were not overwhelmed, is due to the established guidelines, contrary to what some may say that it was because of the weather. It was due to astute leadership from our leaders, both at the political level and the administrative and operational level. And it was also due to the hard work and tremendous support given by our staff members in the healthcare sector and of course across our national security systems. So again, I want to reiterate that we must continue to exercise caution. We must continue to adhere to the guidelines, wearing masks, exercising social distancing, even while we try to return to some level of normalcy. In addition to that, at the Executive Council meeting today, we made a number of key decisions, but I will only talk about two at this time. Firstly, at the Division of Agriculture and Food Production, a decision was approved today by the Executive Council to wind down 3 companies that falls under the leadership of that division. And those 3 companies are the Cassava Company, the Fish Processing Company, and the Tico Suave Company, Tobago Cold Storage Company. And those companies will be subsumed eventually into one company called the Tobago Agribusiness Company Limited. And all the responsibilities of those 3 companies and the mandate of those 3 companies, of course, it will be reviewed and relooked going forward, and it will now fall under the remit of that one new company that will be soon established. So we approved that recommendation from the secretary of that division, and of course that was based on research, a lot of work that has been done over the years, looking at our situation in agriculture in terms of what we should be doing as it relates to marketing, agro-processing, and other areas of the sector. And we have taken that advice and given the authority to subsume those 3 companies into one company. So the secretary with responsibility for food production will bring more details concerning that in a subsequent press conference. As I said, I think it was last Saturday, we also approved the central government's program to assist our hoteliers and other property owners here in Tobago with renovating their properties at this time. We believe that this down period, this slow period, should be used to, as far as possible, improve our tourism offerings, and that includes our sites and attractions, our properties, our level of customer service. We must also treat with the absence of regulations in some areas, and I spoke to the issue of regulations previously. But I want to go further into some more detail as it relates to that program, $50 million, and just to give a breakdown. At the lowest level, of course, all properties are categorized, and at the lowest level, the smallest properties, the expected spend is some $22 million. In the middle category, which are the small guest houses, the expected spend in that category will be some $24 million thereabout. And the largest category, which are the hotels, and the information coming to me is that we only have 12 of those properties, the expected spend will be some $4 million. So the majority of that money will go towards supporting and improving the smaller properties here in Tobago. In addition to that, as I said previously, we were looking at supporting other businesses in the tourism sector, and today we gave approval for the Business Development Unit under the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development, and Labor to make the necessary adjustments and preparations to provide support, grant support of up to $50,000 to other businesses within the tourism sector. So we are making the necessary preparations, we are making the necessary adjustments. As I said as well, last Saturday we had a very rigorous exercise to reprioritize our funding arrangements to ensure that we are giving priority to, first of all, our people here in Tobago, especially those experiencing difficulty, to ensure that they receive much needed social support at this time. We will ensure as well that some of our construction projects continue, because we expect that those projects will ensure that there is some level of activity within the Tobago economy where construction is concerned. And it goes without saying that that sector provides employment to a number of persons here in Tobago. So in closing, again, I want to thank every single Tobagonian, especially those who have demonstrated the kind of leadership that caused them to go out into the highways and the byways, that caused them to go out into the streets, that caused them to dip into their very own pockets to provide support to our brothers and sisters here in Tobago at this time. And I want to say that this administration in the Tobago House of Assembly, we will continue to do all that is necessary to ensure that this island is prepared and that we are in fact on the road to recovery, even as we continue life post-COVID. And the final thing I want to say is that while I'm aware that those in the tourism sector are eagerly anticipating the resumption of business, I want to say as well that the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited, we are also planning as it relates to the marketing of Destination Tobago, and there will be aggressive marketing in the domestic market in Trinidad when the time comes, because I want to reiterate again that those establishments should remain closed until such time. So at the right time, we will begin aggressive marketing, and we will also prepare to target the regional market when the time is right, because the hope is that at some point we should be able to target the regional market, because again, the approach has to be one based on phases. So again, I want to thank all Tobagonians for your support, not only to this administration, and not only to the Tobago House of Assembly, by following the guidelines and adhering to the restrictions, as uncomfortable as that might have been, but I also want to thank you for your support that you would have given to each other during this critical and challenging time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dennis. And now we will go to the question and answer segment. So media, as is customary, you raise your virtual hand. We are asking persons to ask 2 questions at a time. We have quite a few persons logged in, and so we would want to give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions. So for this first round, we're going to take 2 questions at a time. So let me go to Whitfield Turner, I-95.
Good afternoon to everyone. Whitfield Turner from
Good
NS.
afternoon, Whitfield.
My first couple questions, based on what Chief Secretary Dennis would have just said, I'd like to find out how soon will hoteliers be able to access the funding that has been spoken about so that they can begin the renovation works on their properties? And also, have we been dipping into the Tobago version of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund thus far? And if the answer to that is yes, can you give us a figure as to how much monies would have been expended from the fund?
Thank you, Whitfield.
Right, so the first question is, how soon can hoteliers reopen their establishments?
Access the fund.
Access the fund, sorry. So as I said, it was approved. The process will be administrated by the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited. They, as I speak, should be working on getting the information to the various hoteliers so that they are fully aware of the criteria. As a matter of fact, I could have made some announcements on that today, but I'll allow the agency to treat with that based on the relationship with the hoteliers. So they will be made aware of all the criteria so that they can begin to submit their applications. In terms of when exactly the funding will be available, I will not be able to give a specific date, but what I would say is that the process has begun, and the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited will be responsible for the administration of it. There will be an evaluation committee with representatives from both the agency and the THA that will have responsibility for evaluating the various applications, the scope of works, and issues like that. The other question was with respect to the Tobago version of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Well, there is no Tobago Heritage and Stabilization Fund. What we have is a contingency fund. And I do not have the exact figure in terms of what we have taken out of that account thus far, but I think I can mention that projects or programs like CPEP and URP are normally funded by that contingency fund. In the meantime, we are looking within our resources. As I said before, we have reprioritized. We have made decisions to discontinue or shelve a number of projects, especially those that have not started, and therefore the funding will be rerouted to other more important areas. In addition to that, the central government has given a commitment to support in a number of areas. I think there was some 50 million given for COVID relief. Some of those funds were already received and expended by the Division of Health. In addition to that, there is a 50 million, as I said before, that has been committed to treat with the renovation program for our hoteliers and other property owners here in Tobago. And the central government will continue to give the necessary financial support as we go through this period.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. I now call on Elizabeth Williams, TV6.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Elizabeth, good afternoon.
Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News. I'm just going back to the situation with the payment of grants. I know at the last Executive Council meeting, it was stated that a collaboration will be made with the Ministry of Social Development towards this payment. But what I wanted to know is what in the short term, what short-term arrangements are going to be made to have monies paid to people in terms of grants, rental, and other relief grants. As I mean, COVID-19, we are going into phase 2 tomorrow, and many Tobagonians are without payments of these grants. And my other question, I know THA Chief Secretary Ansel Dennis would have stated the cassava company and also the fish processing company and the Tobago cold storage company, that these will be intertwined into one. How soon will this be done? And my final question is, could you name some of the projects under the Tobago House of Assembly that are going to be shelved at this time?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Now remember, we did say 2 questions, so we'll take your first 2 questions. The first one in terms of short term, how soon can grants be accessed in the short term? And then the second question, how soon will the integration of the 3 companies take place?
Right, so we have distributed over 3,000 food cards to Tobagonians. And of course, that is through the Emergency Food Support Program through the Division of Finance. So we are supporting persons at this time. We are responding to those emergency cases where there are persons without foodstuff, etc. In addition to that, the Division of Health as well as the Division of Community Development has also assisted with a number of food hampers. So the Tobago House of Assembly continues to provide food support. With respect to the rental assistance program, I think the Minister of Social Development and also the Assistant Secretary in the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development did indicate that there were some serious challenges with that program, and therefore we have gone in the direction of engaging in a verification exercise to verify each and every application. I think the figure here in Tobago is just about 2,000 applications. So the division has begun the work of verifying all those applications, and I can't give the specific timelines at this period in terms of when that exercise will end, but it is ongoing and we are moving as quickly as we possibly can to give the support to the people. And I want to add as well that COVID-19 and this pandemic caught every single country off guard. No country was prepared, especially with respect to treating with the healthcare side of it. Fortunately for us, we managed our situation in such a way where we made some key early decisions that allowed us to restrict our cases to 116 thus far. Other countries were not so fortunate. The situation with respect to the social development and the social response also created some challenges where the system has been, I would say, almost overwhelmed with a number of applications. And therefore, the government at the central level is responding, and we in the THA as well, we are also responding. And that is why we have also called on our citizens. I think it was just about a month ago, I made a call for each and every Tobagonian to consider giving 10% of their income towards supporting each other. Because we have been saying over and over, all of us are in this together, and I've said as well that we should leave no man behind. And therefore, in order for us to navigate these times successfully, the government must do its best, and we continue to do our best. We continue to navigate the challenges with funding. We have to remember as well that Oil prices hit rock bottom recently. So we continue to navigate all kinds of challenges with respect to funding, with respect to even the usual bureaucracy of the public service. And therefore, we are treating with this as fast as we possibly can, while at the same time ensuring that we minimize opportunities for corruption and fraud.
And the second question, how soon will the integration of the three companies take place?
Again, I cannot give specific timelines. What I can say is that we approve the process. The process will begin, and the secretary did indicate that his intention is that the new company should be established by the 1st of October.
We now move to Cassandra Thompson-Forbes, Guardian Media.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Cassandra.
Okay, my first question, Mr. Dennis indicated that the three THA companies will be brought under one head. Apart from TECOSWAF, which we all are aware of, can you give us the locations of the other two, and can you state what are the successes of those three companies, please?
As I said, the other company was the cassava company, and the other company was the fish processing company. The reality is that we have not been able to achieve the intended objectives, and hence the reason for this change. We believe that in order for us to improve our food production capacity on the island, in order for us to give our farmers and our citizens here the kind of support and the kind of value that they expect from this administration, we ought to make changes where necessary. And of course, sometimes tough decisions ought to be made, and this is one of the decisions we will make at this point in time. We will subsume the three companies into one with a new mandate, a fresh vision going forward to ensure that we achieve the desired objectives.
Cassandra, do you have a second question?
Yes, I do. My second question, we have a situation where Assemblyman Sheldon Cunningham made serious allegations about the food card distribution in his area. You stated that you would be looking into the matter. So, Mr. Dennis, has Mr. Cunningham furnished you with the relevant evidence, and can you give us an update on the matter, please?
Well, allegations are only allegations until facts and evidence is provided. So I spoke to Mr. Cunningham concerning the matter as soon as I heard about it, and I asked for the relevant information. I was provided with some initial information, which I did verify, and I spoke to the Secretary of Finance. I also spoke to an individual who was in receipt of a food card, and so far I have found that there is no evidence to suggest that the process was fraudulent or corrupt in any way. I, at this time, await further information so that I can ask the Secretary to furnish me with the necessary information to verify these claims.
Thank you, Cassandra. We go back to Whitfield Turner, I-95.
Yes, thank you very much again. Secretary Dennis, with respect to the construction projects, do you have a list as to which projects will be resuming and which projects will be put on the back burner for now, especially as it pertains to the airport terminal project? Where would that fit in the whole priority and scheme of things going forward? Also, the persons who are currently employed in the cassava company and FIPCOT, hearing this announcement now, there may be concerns as to their job security going forward. What assurances can you give to those persons at this time?
So I'll answer the last one first. There will be no issues with job security. All the operatives in the various companies, they will be preserved and form part of the establishment of the new company. Of course, they will be required to work a lot more than they are doing now. The second question was with respect to
Which projects
THA
are going
projects.
to be shelved at this time?
Well, as you could see, I don't have a list of projects, But there are a number of ongoing projects. For instance, the Color Hall Administrative Complex. I think there was some community centers under refurbishment. You had the Roxborough Hospital, the Roxborough, the Moriah Health Center, I think the Roxborough Fire Station. A number of ongoing projects were happening across Tobago. And the plan is that as we open from tomorrow, those projects will be reopened on a phased basis and work will resume. With respect to which projects are priority and which projects would have been shelved, I will furnish you with that information at a later date. Because as you can see, I don't have a list of projects before me.
Thank you, Whitfield. I'll go to two persons who haven't asked questions for the afternoon. Camille McKechnie, Guardian Media.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Camille. We're hearing you.
Good afternoon. These two questions are health related. The first question is about cancer treatment for Tobagonians. Is the Chief Secretary aware that there has been no hematologist or oncologist on the island for a number of months? Persons with cancer have reached out to us indicating that they're not sure how they're being treated, and they're very concerned that this matter is addressed as soon as possible. So are you aware about the situation, and how soon can cancer patients get some kind of relief in Tobago?
That's the only question?
The next question concerns gratuity for persons who worked in the health sector. Those persons have been working at the Tobago Health Promotion Clinic from 2003 to 2017, and they have not received any gratuity as yet. So the question is, are you aware of the situation, and how soon? Because what we've been hearing is that people who came after them, they have gotten their gratuity, but they haven't gotten any at all.
Right, so gratuity is outstanding across a number of divisions in a number of areas for a number of different reasons as well. So it doesn't surprise me that in some cases you may have persons who would gratuity after other persons will get their gratuity before, because there are a number of issues. Sometimes it's an absence of documentation that creates the challenges. But I have given a commitment that going forward, the issue of outstanding gratuity payments and other payments to individuals, whether it be overtime, allowances, etc., will be a matter of priority for this administration going forward. So I'm saying all those persons with outstanding gratuity issues, they will be dealt with. I will ask them, however, especially for those who have been outstanding for a very long time, and you have gone to the division, you have gone to the administrator with no redress, I am asking them to write to me on the specific issues. And of course, I will investigate and I will ask the chief administrator or the relevant administrators to look into those issues, because I'm aware of some situations where sometimes files might be sitting on a desk or in some drawer for a number of months, right? And persons are there waiting on their gratuity payments. I also want to appeal to public servants that while the administration, while we have given the commitment, there is a need for cooperation at all levels, whether it be persons in accounts, whether it be persons employed in HR, there is a need for commitments at the human resource level and at the accounts level again. There is a need for persons to treat gratuity and even other payments related to our own brothers and sisters here in Tobago. There is a need for them to treat it as if it were their own biological brother or sister. Yeah? So I'm saying we must all cooperate to ensure that gratuity payments are processed. Persons must do their work effectively and efficiently to ensure that our fellow brothers and sisters are not waiting unnecessarily long to receive monies owed to them.
And Camille's second question was related to cancer patients.
I am aware of some of those challenges. Up to last night, I received a message from someone on Facebook who is in need of urgent surgery, and they have not been able to receive the treatment at this point in time. So it's a matter that I will discuss. I have discussed it, and I will continue to discuss it with the Secretary of Health and other persons within that division and the TRHA to ensure that we treat with the treatment of those individuals in a timely manner going forward.
I now go to Akinlabi Holder, Tobago Channel 5. Good afternoon, Akinlabi.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Good afternoon. Honorable Chief Secretary, concerning the food card issue again, last week, Assistant Secretary Navy Stuart Phillips would have said that the process is that they give cards to assemblymen and councillors in those areas. However, the press release from the Division of Finance yesterday mentioned nothing about councillors. So I was wondering about councillors being authorized to get food cards. So I was wondering if you could clear up the issue on whether councillors do have, councillors are getting food cards or not getting food cards. And do you think that councillors having food cards, given that they are not elected representatives, is the best way forward in this process?
Well, let me just say that nobody is given food cards. Let me explain the process. Now, this program has been ongoing in the division since 2012, I think it was. The usual process was that persons will go to the division to apply for those food cards. Having been stricken by this pandemic, we were in a crisis and there were a number of persons in need of this kind of assistance. I am sure some of us may remember that persons were going to Victor E. Bruce complex, financial complex in droves, seeking this assistance. And therefore, like the central government, we decided that the best way to approach this will be a decentralized approach where persons can go through their area representatives. And I want to say as well that area representatives were assisting before with other areas of social support, assisting persons with filling out and submitting forms for the Ministry of Social Development's program and also the National Insurance Board's salary review grant. So area representatives were always assisting. So given the circumstances, the approach is that assemblymen and councillors and even other employees within the Tobago House of Assembly, sometimes social workers, can assist persons with filling out these forms and can even submit these forms on behalf of those persons. The division will verify, and then persons will be called to collect their cards. As far as I'm aware, there is no situation where any assemblyman or councillor or anybody in the Tobago House of Assembly, as a matter of fact, and let me go further to say that I have been given the assurance by the Secretary of Finance that no food cards leaves the division without the support of an application form. So application form comes in, they verify the application, then the food cards are issued. In addition to that, persons are required to sign for receiving the food cards, and the ID numbers are also quoted. The other question with respect to who should and should not distribute food cards, all I will say is that we need all hands on deck. So I'm saying if they are trusted members of the team, councillors operate at the highest level of governance on the island, and therefore they are expected to be people of integrity, and they are all people of integrity as far as I'm aware. Every single assemblyman and councillor in the Tobago House of Assembly, maybe with the exception of one, are persons of integrity and are persons that I trust and respect. And therefore, I expect them to operate accordingly to ensure that there is no corruption, to ensure that there is no fraudulent activity. And based on my discussions with the Secretary of Finance, I am assured and convinced that we do have the checks and balances in place to ensure that each food card given to any individual is supported by an application form. And in addition to that, that no individual receives 2 and 3 food cards. Let me say as well that given the circumstances, and we all know that the food card is a one-use card, we have made arrangements so that persons can apply for a card. When that card has been utilized, they can reapply for another card 1 month after the first or the previous application. And that exercise will continue for 3 months. If the situation remains the same, we do intend to extend it to give the necessary support to the people of Tobago.
Thank you, Akin Labi. I now call on Lois Vincent, Guardian Media.
Mr. Dennis, good afternoon. I'd like to know, hello?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to know what is going to be put in place to ensure that hoteliers who receive the grant financing, they are held accountable for the finances, because in the past, we know plans who received the money and went into receivership soon after. That's number one. And number two, any provisions going to be made for human resource improvement in the tourism sector? Because we've heard complaints in the past about the service sector not being the best on the island. Are any additions or any systems going to be put in place so that when the plans move up in terms of the physical infrastructure, we have the human resource matching that improvement?
Right, so the first question.
Accountability by the hoteliers.
So no funding will go directly to any hotelier or any property owner, as a matter of fact. The funding will be used for renovation purposes, and I think there are some other purposes which relates to the improvement of their property in the policy. There is a policy. Within that policy, there are strict guidelines based on what I have read in the policy, and I think the criteria with respect to who can apply and who qualifies will ensure that there are checks and balances in place. I want to repeat that there will be an evaluations committee with responsibility for evaluating every single application to ensure that the funding is utilized for the purposes which it was given.
And the second question regarding the development of the human resource on the island.
Yes, so I've said that we will use this down period to treat with some of our niggling issues in the tourism sector. I spoke a number of times about the issue of regulating the tourism sector and the issue of customer service. That will also draw tremendous attention from this administration going forward. So we'll use the opportunity as well to ensure that we offer the kind of training. As a matter of fact, in some cases, it may be a prerequisite towards persons receiving the kind of support they expect from the Tobago House of Assembly.
I now go to Vern Extavor, Street 91.9. Good afternoon, Vern.
Hi, good afternoon. And just make sure you all are hearing me?
We are hearing you.
Excellent, all right. And this may catch you a little bit off guard, but I want to find out if we are having proper communication. I just got a press release from NIDCO about the APT James Fast Ferry being finished in terms of construction and possibly to be making its way to Trinidad and Tobago at the end of July. Have you gotten any information on that? And is the Executive Council looking at the schedules and how that will be instituted and implemented in the service of running between Trinidad and Tobago? That's my only question today. Thanks.
Right, well, I'm now hearing about that information, but of course, in terms of the scheduling and all of that, that will be treated with in the future. Given our situation now, of course, we have to be careful and adhere to all the guidelines with respect to travel between the islands. And I think for now, we remain at 50% capacity.
I go back to Elizabeth Williams, TV6.
Hi, good afternoon again. Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News.
Hello,
I
Elizabeth.
know CHA Chief Secretary Ansel Dennis would have stated that persons who are having problems with gratuity payments can contact him directly. Could members of the public have your email address or contact number so that they would be able to send these emails with respect to their gratuity payments?
Right, so...
Go ahead,
I have
a second question. I know it's just two.
Go ahead, Elizabeth, your second question.
Right. My second question is I don't know if I heard it clearly, but I don't want to misquote you, Mr. Ansel Dennis. Is it that you said that you don't trust one of your assemblymen, something like that? You were stating that you listed and you said assemblyman and you said something and it stuck out to me that you don't trust one of them. Is it that you stated?
All right, so let me answer the last one first. I was referring to assemblymen across Tobago, and I'm saying I trust the integrity of all the assemblymen in the Tobago House of Assembly, opposition side and majority side. I trust all the assemblymen and councillors, maybe with the exception of one, on the minority side.
Oh, and which?
And I will not call names.
Okay. And her first question is related to your contact details for persons with gratuity issues.
Right, so I'm saying persons should communicate in writing because we know in the public service, paper is important. So my email address is anseldennis.tha@gmail.com. Ansel Dennis, that's my full name spelled all common letters, .tha, as in Tobago House of Assembly, @gmail.com. So persons can communicate in writing there, or they can write to me in hard copy as well.
So we only have a few more minutes, and I'm seeing 3 hands raised. I'd like each one to get the opportunity to ask their questions. So I'm going to restrict your questions to 1 per person. I go to Cassandra Thompson-Forbes, Guardian Media.
It is indeed difficult to get to 1 because I have only my final 2 questions. Would I be indulged, Dan?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Cassandra.
Okay, so my first question, during the lockdown, several projects would have been on a standstill. And as we all know, time is money. So did the THA experience any cost overruns or setbacks due to the lockdown? And can you quantify it, please? And my second question, and this is going back to Assemblyman Sheldon Cunningham's statement, since you have found there was no evidence of anything fraudulent or corrupt, Mr. Dennis, can you indicate if Mr. Cunningham would be disciplined or held accountable for his utterances? Because some may feel that he may have brought the THA and the PNM party by extension into disrepute. That's it.
All right, so let me answer the last one first again. I said the initial information suggests to me that there is no issue at all with the distribution of food cards and how it was done. I asked him to provide me with additional information if there is any, and I still await that information. There is no intention to discipline Mr. Cunningham at this time by me. What was the first question?
Whether there have been cost overruns regarding projects and whether those have been quantified.
Yes, there definitely will be some cost overruns, especially a number of the THA projects. In terms of development, especially in the division of infrastructure, where we continue to pay salaries for persons in the absence of actual work being done. I expect as well, even on projects being done by private contractors, that there will be some increased costs due to the stoppage of projects. To quantify that at this point in time will be obviously difficult for me, but I can try to get some information to you afterwards.
I'll quickly go to Akinlabi Holder, Tobago Channel 5. Akinlabi, hello again.
Yes, good day. My question is concerning the food policy. I want to go back to it. The minority council would have said that they would have assisted persons to submit applications, but they've gotten no calls whatsoever from the Division of Finance to come and collect food cards to distribute to those persons that have gotten applications from. So it seems as though only the PNM assemblymen and councillors have gotten access to those food cards to distribute. Can you clarify what is the process? Was it made known to all assemblymen and all councillors, despite our political leanings, about
Well-
the process and that they come and collect food cards and that kind of thing?
Well, I believe so, because I think the minority should remember that when I would have asked assemblymen across Tobago to make the offices available to assist persons through this crisis, I did write to each and every assemblyman, and I think one of the minority assemblymen responded to that request. So of course the processes include all assemblymen across Tobago. Now I think the important thing is whether or not those persons would have received a response, because if you're saying they submitted applications and persons did not receive the cards, then that is another issue, and again I will have to investigate that if that is the case. What was the other question?
Akilabi, did you have a second question?
But I'll ask a second question. It's concerning the capital of paradise. I don't know if you could give any update on that, since you're speaking about the amalgamation of the different companies.
That boat is down for repairs.
Do you know where it's being repaired and how long it will take?
It is in Trinidad. I am not sure of the exact timelines with respect to when the repairs will be completed.
Thank you, Akinlabi. I go to Whitfield Turner, I-95.
Yes, my question goes back to Monday's presser and the announcement of the Medical Assistance Review Committee. Can we be informed as to whether there's an upper limit as to the assistance that can be obtained through this initiative, if there is such an upper limit, and what that limit might be?
So I'll have to get that specific information for you, but I'm not aware that there is an upper limit. It of course depends on the exact circumstances, the amount being asked for, and of course I believe a certain percentage. But as I said, I will try to get the specific information with respect to if there is an upper limit, right? And I'll pass that information on to you. And in terms of all the persons that have promised information, please reach out to me. I think all of you have my contact information. Please reach out to me and remind me, because I'm not likely to remember all the commitments given. So send me a message or shoot me a call and remind me that I did in fact promise you some information and what was the nature of the information.
Well, I believe we have exhausted all our questions for this afternoon. I'm not seeing any more hands raised, so allow me to say thank you very much to the media for your participation in this afternoon's Post-Executive Council media briefing, and thank you as well to Chief Secretary Honorable Ansel Dennis. Let me also thank all of you who are tuned in and viewing on TTT and Tobago Channel 5 and all our social media platforms. We have come to the end of this week's Post-Executive Council media briefing. I'm Avian Parks, Communications Director, Tobago House of Assembly. Thank you for watching. Do have a good evening.